her name again? The woman, the coloured woman.
Hello everyone, welcome to this live stream with me, Craig Houston, and the Silver Fox, and we're going to talk about 12 months of this Labour so-called government. What's gone wrong? What's gone right? It might be difficult to find things that have gone right, but here we go. So the first question I wanted to ask the both of you might be a difficult one. When did it all start to go wrong for this government? You want to start us off, Craig?
I reckon it was probably round about the 4th of July last year, around about 10 o'clock when the exit polls came out. That was kind of where it started going wrong for me. And I think, you know, I was wanting people to tactically vote up here, and that was vote for Labour, Tory or Lib Dem, depending where they lived, because our whole thing was get rid of the SNP. The SDP are quite good. And a lot of people say, I don't know if I could vote Labour. It's like, but I think you've got to recognise that Labour have won anyway. Keir Starmer is going to be the next Prime Minister, and it's going to be pretty rotten. So that was kind of where everybody was, but they've actually managed to, I think, exceed expectations. And they managed to get really negative rather quickly. And it was something that dawned on me. I was on a podcast that night, a live one, the majority up here. And I said, you know, it's weird. Regardless of the parties concerned or where what country you're in, the people of the United Kingdom had enough of Tories, right? They had 14 years there, and en masse had a massive revolt and replaced them at the election, and a massive swing in favour of another party. But nobody was celebrating in the streets. And if that was any other country, in any other circumstance where there was a massive swing like that by the people, to get rid of a group of people they didn't like, they would have been in the streets, as I mean, even in, if it was only one place, or the capital city would have been like a celebration zone. And there was nothing. Nobody, because I kept think everybody went, well, they're going to be bad, aren't they? But how bad? Well, a year later, we kind of figured it out. They're worse.
What about you, David?
Well, I think the Labour victory was a foregone conclusion. We all knew they were going to win. I don't think anyone predicted how big the win would be, number one. And sort of echoing what Craig just said, it's not as though people were voting for Labour. They were voting against the Tories. And I think that's why there was no great big celebration and victory dance. It was a case of, well, thank God the Tories are out, rather than thank God Labour are in. And that was especially when you look at the share of the vote. It was like only 1 in 5 of the actual electorate voted Labour. And yet look at the size of the majority. And given we're now effectively in a 5-party state, 5.5-party state, I think first past the post is dead. We've got to go PR. We've got to change something. But where did it go wrong? I think we all knew it was going to be bad. Labour never are good. I don't think anyone judged how bad it was going to get and how quickly it was going to get that bad. It was within days you realised it was going to be pretty horrific. And then, of course, the big one. I think the one that lost everything for Labour was Southport. It wasn't the crime. The crime, of course, was awful. It was terrible. We all know. But it was the government's, and in particular Starmer's, response to that I think immediately, within a day, alienated, perhaps forever, this government in the eyes of the people. He can only just be bothered to turn up. He stands there. He puts this pretend face of concern on for 10 seconds, then gets back in the car, pisses off back to London, and then goes out for a drinky party that evening. He didn't take 5 minutes to talk to the people. He didn't talk to the press when he was there. He didn't explain to people how saddened he was, and he didn't offer any kind of, push for, we will sort this out, we will get this, we will get the police here, we'll investigate. None of that. It's turn up, look sad, put down some, petrol station flowers and bugger off. And I think that there destroyed the Labour Party in one 5-minute operation. There he is, and he gets it, and the people of Southport were really angry. He just gets in that He gets in that Range Rover and he gets on that road and back down south the M6 as quick as those wheels would turn. And I think since then, people have just looked at him particularly, and the party generally, as just being inhuman. And then what did it was all the policies that followed, and they were all aimed at the vulnerable. And for a party that pushes how virtuous and how caring it is, I think that it just comes across as they're weak, they're small-minded, and they're crap. There you go.
I think the one that done it for me policy-wise was the heating allowance, taking that off pensioners. Simple. Yeah. Right, I'm not a PR specialist. I'm not some sort of highly intellectual guy planning and scheming that these spin doctors do. Like, they must have had a meeting about that, and nobody's went, this is maybe a bad idea. This is probably not got a good look. They actually just done it, and you think, how bonkers do you need to be to actually? And that was one, I can't remember the timing of it, but it was kind of early doors. It was one of the first biggie. And you think, who actually decides in a room full of people that are meant to be intellectual enough to run a country, that would be a good idea, with a good look? And nobody's went, come here a wee minute, here. Do you realise you're just about to upset quite a lot of the population here? And that sort of frightened me. I thought, how naive are these people?
These policies that they brought in, like the inheritance tax on farmers, the winter fuel, the private schools on VAT on private schools, these are all policies. You listen to Tory ministers. These are policies that the civil service have tried to give them for years. They even tried to give them to the Blair government. Even Blair knew, for example, you can't tax education. It's a stupid thing to do. You can't take away the winter fuel payment. And the civil service have been pushing them for so long. Labour managed to sit in opposition for 14 years, and they can't come up with their own policies in 14 years. So it went wrong, didn't it, before they even won the election? As soon as he stepped into number 10, they had no idea what government was like. And I'm not saying it's easy. Of course, it's a difficult job, and I certainly won't be Prime Minister for 160 grand a year. It's simply not. I don't think the money's worth it. You're probably underpaid, if anything. But my God, the mess they've made of not being able to come up with any of their own policies is just absolutely awful. And when they cancelled Rwanda, day one, which is, of course, what they promised, that was it, weren't it? You've then got no chance of even controlling illegal immigration in any way either. Now they're scrambling around in different places trying to find a policy for that, with getting humiliated, of course, by the Albanian president when Starmer was stood on stage with him and he completely disagreed with him. Completely embarrassing. I can't think, I don't know if you guys can, I can't think of anything that's actually gone right for these people since they came into office.
Well, the only thing they've done right is probably reverse their own mistakes. I mean, that's right. But
that's
still,
all he's done, Craig, is U-turn.
Yeah. It's bonkers, isn't it? That that's the only things. And even that, it shows proper weakness. Do you know what I mean? And it's a strange one, I suppose, because on one hand you're saying, look, you put your hand up and say we got it wrong. But even as recently with the PIP payments, where they just couldn't even gauge the room of their own MPs.
Yeah.
They were about to put something on the floor to vote on and couldn't get into the psyche of their own MPs. That's pretty. And after a year, that's just pretty mental.
To have the majority. Sorry, go on, David.
I was going to say half the problem Labour's got is that they've got so many MPs that are fresh and new in. These guys have never done anything wrong, so the whips don't have anything against them. They don't have them in a little sex scandal. They don't have them in a bit of insider dealing. And so they've got no control over them. So the whips are coming down saying, you will vote for this, and these backbenchers are going, no, I bloody won't. And the whips are like, we're powerless. We don't know. They've got no fear of us. Because they're saying, it doesn't matter what we do, we're going to lose our seat anyway, so we might as well do the right thing and not punish the vulnerable. That's how they're seeing it. And in fact, their local offices, local branches are saying, no, you can't let this happen. We need this. We've got all these members. You do that, we're going to lose our membership, we'll lose our funding and money and everything. And so the MPs themselves are just saying, well, we don't care anymore. We just don't care. And I just think it's marvellous to see. Because normally the whips are the ones that go around with the big sticks and beat the troops into action. But Labour whips have got no more big sticks, have they? One of them's quit.
Yeah, one of them even went with the rebels. Yeah, exactly. That shows exactly how much authority they've really got, doesn't it? And like you said, there's that many of them now that are not scared of the whips because they haven't got anything on them. And then you've always got your hard left rump that are never going to do anything Starmer wanted to do anyway, I suppose. But after less than a year, you can't now get any policies through. The next thing will be something like, getting Palestinians to come over here as some sort of refugee scheme. And if Starmer doesn't do it, then they'll all rebel all over again. It starts again, doesn't it? He's a hostage now. He's not even a prime minister. He's prime minister in name only. And it's something like 180 of those MPs are sitting on majorities of less than 1,000.
Yeah.
So that they've got a damn good chance of losing the seats next time round. So they're thinking, I might as well try and suck up to my constituents and do something that might actually benefit them, rather than go along with Starmer and I'm guaranteed to get voted out. Like you just sort of said, shit or bust, innit? I might as well just go for it. And if I lose my seat, I was going to anyway. So what?
Yeah, I mean, half the bloody cabinet are going to lose their seats at the current polling.
Yeah,
that'd be fantastic to see. They're all sitting there. It'll be a Friday morning. It'll be 3 a.m. We'll all be up watching the results as they come in. Champagne on ice, and then like David Lammy's lost his seat. Pop,
Is there anything that you two? Go on, Craig. Sorry.
I done a live earlier, and the questions at the end, somebody said, did I think Reeves was ready for the chop, right? And you think, well, I don't know. They do that many bonkers things that you couldn't guess, but I believe they've already got a replacement lined up, and it's a bit of a crank Scottish guy that's an MP in Wolverhampton. And you go, right, how bad will it be? Because you would think day one, you're going to put your A team in the front bench. So if Reeves does go, then you're just going to shuffle about your front bench, and then whoever gets up job is you're going to take somebody off the substitutes bench and drop them into their job. So it's not going to get any better. Do you know what I mean? They've not got anybody. And then you look at the front bench, you think, oh my God, Lammy, right? You've got him, you've got Reeves, you've got Rayner, you've got, who's that guy called that thinks he's dead clever and he's actually an arse?
Streeting.
That's him. What a bundle of obnoxiousness that man is.
I call him the embryo.
You think, well, part them all. You're just going to get worse. MP. Oh, that's terrible.
Abbott.
She woke up on what?
Diane Abbott.
Something. Aye. I seen her the other day on front of my screen, and I thought, my God, how bad is our country for getting politicians? I mean, that was a woman that got one morning and put her shoes on the wrong feet. Do you know what I mean? And
used to be Jeremy Corbyn's lover.
Well, allegedly. So you're a brave man for saying that.
Allegedly.
Well, allegedly, yeah. When they were in the student union days, I think they still are, to be honest with you. But it is remarkable, isn't it? How I heard a rumor the other day, and this came from somebody within the parliamentary party. And I don't know how true it is. He might have just been feeding me rubbish, but Rayner is seriously gathering the troops now behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And apparently, Streeting's been offered Chancellor if Rayner takes over to control the party. Could you imagine? As Chancellor, I don't know what he's ever done. He never worked in health as far as I know. I think, was he not a hairdresser before he was an MP?
God knows.
Something along.
I can see it. I can honestly see it. Little back off the side, sir. Something for the weekend, sir.
That's what I was told. He's been offered Chancellor by Rayner. She's already touting people for different positions. Of course, she's going to offer it to Streeting because he's probably the only person that's going to run for, credible person that's going to run for leadership alongside her.
Yeah.
It's frightening to think Rayner. Do you know who the second most popular member of the cabinet is?
I know who you're going to say, and it breaks my heart, and it's laughable. But go on, say it. Miliband. I know.
Absolutely frightening. So either him or Rayner could be leader of the Labour Party in the next few months.
I think I'd rather have Rayner because it'll be a laugh. Because it's all going to go to hell in a handcart in about 10 minutes. But anything that keeps Miliband out of power. But I mean, the trouble, I'm going to just to get chancelloring here for a second. The trouble with Starmer is, if he replaces Reeves, whoever he replaces Reeves with is fireproof. Because you can't fire two chancellors.
No.
So if he does pick someone and it's an awful chancellor, stuck with it. And it's, who's he going to pick?
What's really frightening is, and I don't know how I say this with a straight face, really, but out of everybody sat there, she actually is the person with the most real world experience. And look at the bollocks she's been at the entire thing. She's the only person that, as far as I can see, has ever worked in the private sector. Yes, she lied on her CV, but she's actually had a job.
She did. She claimed initially she did 10 years in care services. Then it turned out she did. Well, then she claimed it was 13 years. Then it turned out she did 6 years. But for 4 of those, she was a union convener. So she's actually only worked 2 years. But it's 2 years more than the rest of them combined.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, look at that front bench. Is that really the best they've got in that party? Maybe it's a case of he didn't know who a lot of these new MPs were, I suppose. I can forgive him for that. But surely you'd look and think, oh, look, there's someone who's worked in banking there, or someone's used to be a doctor, or someone is a doctor or something. Why don't we put them in charge of health? All he's done is surrounded himself with his closest rivals and then just hope that nobody moves against him because they've got the ministerial cars and salaries. And now they are moving against him. Streeting's clearly on manoeuvres. Rayner's been on manoeuvres for God knows how long.
I googled it there while you were talking, right? West Streeting. He went on to serve as head of education at, drumroll, Stonewall.
Oh, my God.
That doesn't surprise me.
Doesn't surprise me. I bet I can't prove this. I bet they bankrolled his campaign as well to be an MP and everything.
Yeah. It's suspicious, isn't it? Oh, he's awful.
Incredible. So I was wrong about the hairdressing thing, but it's probably, I'd rather it been a hairdresser.
Yeah. But there's none of them got any talent.
Oh no, it's a completely talentless front bench, isn't it? I can't find anyone that's actually done anything meaningful, like had a proper job for a proper career or anything. And those that said they had have lied about it on their CVs. Jonathan Reynolds and Rachel Reeves. So
yeah, he pretended he was a solicitor. She pretended she was an economist. I've got to say, the only one really who's actually ever had a proper job is Starmer himself.
Yeah, well, if you can call human
rights labour a job.
Yeah, true. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. But what I mean, for me, this is something I was going to ask you anyway. Like, is there one thing you can actually pinpoint that if Labour could get rid of one thing to improve their fortunes? For me, Starmer is the ultimate problem. All right, it's a talentless bench anyway, but Starmer is a fundamentally dislikable man. He hasn't got any personality, any charisma, any sympathy, empathy. There's absolutely nothing to the guy. He is the definition of an empty suit. You know, that's why he goes to places like Southport and doesn't speak to anybody because he's incapable of doing it. You know, he goes to the races. People are calling him a wanker and all sorts as he's walking through. And he just, head down, walks through. Like, why don't you actually try and display some sort of human qualities, anything at all? And people might actually take to you, but because people don't know anything about the guy, what he believes, anything, they just think you're a tosser. I've got absolutely no time for you. It's why you don't go out in public anymore. The only time he's ever seen now, it's so heavily choreographed. It's just ridiculous.
Well, there was that one from several years ago where he tried to go to the pub and the owner threw him out, didn't he? Yeah. Honestly, it was like Barbara Windsor. Get out of my pub,
They were talking there about his mannerisms and stuff, Ash. And do you know what I find a bit bizarre? And I didn't really study him before he became Prime Minister. But what I see in front of me when he's talking, and even when he's like in the company of people like Trump and even Zelensky with all these people, he looks like he's totally out of place. It's as if he's really struggling with the company he's in. And he looks nervous and he's not stuttering, but pausing between words and things. And I think, you actually show no confidence whatsoever. Every single retort is scripted. You think there's nothing behind you. You've got absolutely no substance whatsoever.
No. Even admitted the other day, didn't he?
I call him the Starmer Droid 3000. When you look at him, it's because he's like a robot. He doesn't give off body language. We communicate by words, but we also, especially if you're Italian, you have head movement, eye movement, you use your hands. He just stands there like a mannequin. As you say, a stuffed suit. He just stands there like a mannequin. The mouth opens and closes. He doesn't blink. He just says the words like that. And he's got no... There's no humanity within him. Like I say, he's just like a little rubber doll, with somebody's hand up their arse operating the mouth.
There's something off topic I've just realised, David. You're just back from the Mediterranean, and a Scottish guy who's normally light blue coloured looks a bit darker than you. What happened to your suntan?
I've been ill, remember. I'm recovering from my psoriasis now. I couldn't sit in the sun very much. So I daren't get out. And so what you're actually seeing is more kind of reflected off things rather than direct sunlight. So, So I've gone a bit pink, a bit lobstery, but not much. But it is what it is.
Do you know what I've said before?
That's the colour I am. Look, I'm light blue. I'm not even I don't even start white.
2 weeks in the sun to go white.
Or 2 days in Cali. I get a bit sunburnt in Cali. In fact,
I have noticed one thing, and I don't want to make this the Let's All Praise the Wonderful Craig show, but you've lost a lot of weight, mate. You're looking good on it.
Well, we had this conversation last night, David. I don't know how you.
Oh, did we? Oh, I can't remember that. No, I can't. I don't know why I can't remember that.
Yeah, my illness. Oh. My screen a bit funny. My illness made me change my diet quite dramatically, mate. And I think I've lost about 3 stone. It's my eyes here. Just looking on the camera, a big dark baggy eyes I had.
They were really dark and ringed as well. They've gone.
Yeah. I have to buy a whole new watch.
Back on topic a little bit.
Sorry.
Yeah, back on topic.
No, I was going to say.
How about you, Ash?
I still haven't got a tan. I've been to Malta in the last few weeks.
I know. Yeah. You're like me. You just go red. Yeah.
I go red, then I go white again. That's it. So there's no point in me burning or peeling because it's just not worth the pain.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I've said this before on a podcast, and it's controversial. It wouldn't be Starmer's fault. I actually think, and I can't prove this, and we'll never find out, I think he's autistic. I think he's on the spectrum. And that's why he's so awkward in every single setting that you see him in.
I think you've nailed it. Yes. Now you've said it. Yes, I think you're right. Yeah.
Like I said, that wouldn't be his fault. It's the way he is.
No, I mean it is. I'm on the spectrum. I've got Asperger's. I've been an accountant for 35 years. Trust me, walk into an accountant's office or a computer room filled with people with Asperger's, right? So it's a very common thing. So I'm aware of it. But yeah, he's got full blown autism. I think that could be why he doesn't do the eye contact thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It could be
you're right.
He's obviously an intelligent guy, and people who are autistic, or like you said, like Asperger's, they are intelligent people, just lack the social skills to actually interact, and that's Starmer's problem for me. That's why he's the main problem for me in Labour. I'm not saying they'd win the next general election if he left, because look who's coming after him, but he's definitely a major problem. The only thing I think he did get right, which is a minor thing really, when Trump was slapping the tariffs on everybody, he didn't jump out and make a big statement and all that. He actually kept his trap shut for a little bit, didn't he? And managed to talk to Trump later on when he cooled down a little bit. I'd say that's the only minor thing that he's actually got right, unless you can think of anything else.
Well, it was on that trip where I first thought he acts a bit peculiar, because when he was in that Oval Office, remember the bit where he pulled out the letter for the King inviting him? It was like a child talking to a football star. I thought that's kind of the vibe I got, and I thought, mate, you're meant to be a leader of the United Kingdom. You're not in a room with somebody that's loads of steps above you. And I thought, that's a bit weird. And then it was, I've got a letter for you from the King.
Can I have your autograph?
Can we get a selfie?
It's bad, isn't it? And then a few weeks later, he's picking up Trump's papers off the floor, weren't he, when they blew out of his hand?
Yeah.
Will this government, do you think, and I don't think they will for what it's worth, get to 2029?
Short answer, no. Long answer, possibly, but probably no. I think the internal fighting within the party and the collapse of the economy will, by necessitation, force a general election. I actually can see the party splitting. There's that fundamental difference in it.
I can see a general election.
What's the majority right now?
150,
153, something like that.
Yeah, they've lost 2 or 3, haven't they? So it was 156.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's a big gap to pull before you get to that. Like, what would it take? The threat of a vote of no confidence would probably be enough for them to go, bugger it, we'll just have an election. But it's a big gap to fill before you get there, and I kind of think that's probably why they might not do a full 5, but they might do a 4 and have an early one. But
would Starmer's ego force him to call one though? There was rumours the other week that he'd threatened it if Rayner moved against him. Would he rather go to a general election and get slaughtered than let somebody like Rayner make him look a mug and take over him?
That's not a bad point, actually, because that was a thing that was flung at the Tories because they had so many unelected prime ministers in a short period of time. That and no doubt Labour were giving them its thinking for the other side of the floor back then for it. So that's a thought, actually. Would they put in somebody that was an unelected leader after the crazy situation? I mean, how many see between those 2 elections, the last one Tories won and this one that they lost, how many leaders did they have? Was it 3, 4?
3, yeah.
3 leaders, yeah.
Boris, Truss, Rishi, weren't it?
Yeah.
I haven't missed one.
Aye,
Boris, Truss, Rishi.
Boris won an election, didn't he?
Boris won the election.
2019. He got the big majority in 2019.
Truss lasted 42 days or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And Rishi did, I don't know how long it was now. What did Rishi do? A year and a half or something?
Yeah, about 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
God, you look back on Rishi and you think, God, it was bad at the time, but don't you wish you had him back now?
I was just going to say...
Take Boris back in a minute, man. Take Boris back. He was nuts. He jumps in his Union Jack and all that carry on.
Since he got married to that woman with the lip, can't remember her name, they've had 4 kids.
Carrie, yeah, they have, haven't they? He turns them out, doesn't he? I don't know how many kids he's got, but...
He doesn't know how many kids he's got.
He must have at least 10 kids.
What about that horrible singer? What's her name again? She can't remember how many.
The one who's promoting.
I don't want to say a name of a singer if it's the wrong singer because I'll lose subs if I get the wrong name.
I was going to say Lily Savage. Evidently not Lily Savage, right? What's her name? She getting interviewed in the last 24 hours, 48 hours in some podcast talking about abortion, and she just
Lily Allen.
Was it 4?
Lily Allen.
Lily Allen.
Yeah.
Listen, that there might have been a good reason for every single one, right? So I'm not judging her for that, but what I'm going to judge her for is it's like enough of tunnels, right? What? Stop it! Just stop it!
And the fact she's so blasé, going, I don't know, 4 or 5, I can't remember. I could not believe what I was watching. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
And the girl interviewing her, I'm about the same. All right, that's great. That's between 8 and 10 people we don't have in our country with ever decreasing population.
Yeah.
I
think the way it's going, though, about 1 in 5 people in this country will be a Johnson.
Maybe Boris is trying to make up for them all single-handedly.
Bang, bang, Boris.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I would take... I was going to say it before you said that, David. I would take back Rishi now. If you look back, I mean, I voted Reform. I don't regret voting Reform. But if I had my time again, knowing what I know now, looking at Starmer, I'd vote Tory and put Rishi and Hunt back in. I don't even have a lot of time for either of them, but at least the economy was growing slowly.
Yeah.
They had Rwanda that was about to go. We might have seen some improvement. But look where we are now. You've got a Tory party that's got, 120 MPs left or something. You've got a Reform UK that's doing its best, but you've got 5 MPs. Nobody can touch them, can they? They're absolutely untouchable at the moment. The only people opposing Labour are Labour.
Do you know the thing
the other Labour?
Me, we do not have a single party that you could put your hand in your heart and say they will do a better job. There's nobody who can win an election right now who would confidently give us a better Brit. Right? And you say, how bad is politics when there's not a... Reform should be that far away. But unfortunately, with every passing day, you just go, stop it. If Nigel Farage had just shut up for 4 or 5 years, he'd have been the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And by the way, he might very well be. But you go, you're doing a really good job of putting people off you. Just do nothing. You would be better position right now. than doing something. And the mad thing is, out of the three parties that could possibly win an election, they're probably the best out of the three of them. And they're not great. That's how bad
I was going to say, it's working though, isn't it? Because, I mean, if they were dropping in the polls, they'd probably change tack, but it seems to be working, doesn't it? They're ahead in the polls by a few points at least, depending on who you look at. And that you're probably right to an extent, by the way. Out of the three main parties that could win an election, they're probably the best because they're unproven. They've never been in government.
I think it's a wrong terminology, mate. I think it's the least worst. It's good. They're no good.
I think it's the party of change. I just think it's the party of change.
I went for
People
a guy
are fed up with what
didn't-
they got and they just want something different.
Yeah. And I've been, in the space of 12 months, I went for a guy that didn't actually mind Farage to actually I cringe every time I hear him now. Do you know what I mean? You go a bit,
he's not the Messiah, but he's different. And I think that's what the appeal is. It's not that they expect anything great.
He's not different because he talks nonsense.
Different.
He talks nonsense, he tells lies, and he doesn't answer a question. So he's not different.
You just describe every MP in Parliament.
Aye, he's not any different. I don't see the difference. I mean, the one that gets me is he's done 2 interviews where he's been asked about deportation, and he's twice said, we can't do it, right? Just before the English council elections, I think it was a day or two before it, said, oh, listen, see, within 3 to 4 weeks, we're going to give you a policy on deportation. 70 days ago, those elections, 70 plus, we still don't have it.
Still don't have it now.
What was it they done the other day? They had the right pop. Was it Tice? They had a pure pop at somebody for getting arrested for something stupid. And I was like, well, that's good coming for a party that tried to put one of its own MPs in jail.
Oh, you're about Lucy Conley stuff. He's been doing a lot of Lucy Conley stuff, hasn't he, recently?
You think, you don't get to, when you've tried to put one of your own in jail because of you didn't like what he was saying and apparently threatened somebody, right? So that's just a speech thing, right? Then you don't get to turn up 2 months, 3 months later and tell us all that we've ought to believe in free speech, which I kind of think under my current circumstances and our friend David's, then, a free speech is a bit odd in the United Kingdom. But when you've tried to get somebody arrested from within your own party for telling everybody that, and then they're putting out stuff that he was senile and his guns and all that, you think, no, and listen, I get folk have a pop at me, you'll split the right by telling folk the form are bad. I'll tell anybody that's bad, they're bad. Do you know what I mean? If I didn't call out Reform when Reform do things that I think are incredibly stupid and wrong, then I don't deserve the right to call out Starmer when he does something wrong. We've got to be able to do both. Or we, the new media, the citizen journalists, or whatever it is we want to call us, I'm not comfortable with any of them ones. But if we don't call out anybody and everybody for doing something bad, we're as bad as the mainstream. And I refuse to be that.
There is truth to that, but if you look, how did Labour get in? 14 years, they were sick to death of the Tories, people wanted change. Labour have managed to hit, Tory levels of hatred in 11 months.
Yeah.
Reform are going to form the next government. If coalition possibly or a majority, and I know you'll disagree, Craig, but I think it's a good thing. We just need something different.
It's a bad thing. But what I'm saying is it's not a good thing. I don't think they're good. I think they're just slightly less worse than the two that have already had a shot at it. And the only reason I can't say that they're as bad is just by pure chance that they've not had a shot of it. But I'm not full of confidence that after 2 or 3 years of them being in government, we'll not be sitting talking about the same things, going, that Farage is an arse, isn't he? Imagine doing that. Imagine that. What's happening with deportations? Why have they not brought down immigration? I'm not convinced.
Yeah, there is truth to that, but again, they're untested, aren't they? I mean,
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
the only alternative is to keep voting for the same old shite that we've had for decade after decade, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what I need to remind you.
I was going to say another one of the problems they have. Another one of the problems they have is, in order to get people with experience, they're going to probably have to take Tories in. They have to be very careful which Tories they take, because you don't want it to be a dumping ground for scared little Tories who think they're not going to get in at the next election as a Tory. And yet you just look at their records and go, no, you're a wet. You can't let the wets in because the wets will just destroy it. There are the rumour, I think we've all heard the rumour about Jacob wanting to perhaps throw his hat in the ring for reform down in Bristol,
North Somerset,
somewhere, yeah. Because it was his old site, which he did the job for nothing. People didn't realise that.
Yeah, he did.
And so he's looking at maybe standing there because the current guy is going to be on trial for 10 terrible stuff. I'm not going to say it out on the channel here. Terrible stuff. If he does stand, there's a possibility he could stand for reform, and I actually think that would be pretty good, because then you'd have an adult in the room in reform.
Yeah, he's good, Jacob Rees-Mogg, and I think he's good as well. The polling shows that if he stands as a reform candidate, he wins it by about 30 points. But if he stands as a Tory, it's too close to call between him and a reform candidate. So there's a chance that you could actually let Labour down the middle. So I'd love to see him in reform. And he's mates with Farage as well, isn't he? So there's a chance there he could actually get in there. I like Jacob Rees-Mogg. He's very... I know people see him as too posh, but I think he's very intelligent.
I love his
He knows
poshness.
Parliament. Yeah, he's almost too posh, isn't he? He's unreal the way he speaks.
Yeah. But he's a very polite man, and he's a very educated man. And I just think he's someone that I feel how can I put this? I feel he's trustworthy. And you don't get that much in a politician.
No, anyone that's willing to be an MP and give all the salary back, regardless of their own personal wealth, is pretty good in my books.
Yeah.
I quite like him, right? But the one thing I just can't get out of my head anytime I see him on TV, and David will get this, you'll probably be like, what they're talking about. He looks like one of the Bash Street kids that used to get bullied all the time. Am I right?
I know you mean. It was Dennis the Menace's neighbour, Walter.
Is that what that's what he's just like? Walter the Softy.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Walter the Softy.
I can't get that out of my head. But anytime I hear him in the radio, I listen to GB News a lot in the car, and he's on that often. And I quite like the guy, actually.
Yeah, he's been an MP for long enough. People must like him down there. Yeah. He is a credible guy. Hopefully he does stand for reform. I'd like to see it. But who knows? Maybe he's too loyal to the Tories. But he strikes me as a pretty loyal guy, so he might actually stay as a Tory. But he'd have to give up GB News anyway. Maybe he's happy just presenting on GB News. Alongside Craig.
Sitting in front of a camera is hard work, isn't it, guys?
Yeah.
You wouldn't need to stop that, because half the Reform MPs are presenters on GB News.
Yeah, they are actually, aren't they?
Well, Tice's wife is, isn't she?
That's Talk TV, isn't it?
That's Talk TV.
She's
Isabel
very condescending.
Yeah.
I did like her up to a point, and then see when they all started falling out, see some of the stuff she was coming out of. Like, we know he's your man, right? And it's nice supporting your man, but just stop it. Some of the cringy things she said about Rupert Lowe and stuff like that.
I liked her until reform started getting big, and then all of a sudden, you're not allowed to criticise reform. She goes mental now if somebody criticises him.
Here's the thing with reform, right? See if reform are not where they should be, and they're not what they should be. Reform should be far better than they are. But if nobody criticises them, they will never change. So perversely, the people like me that do criticise them are actually doing them more favours than the people who don't. And do you know what they're becoming like? And folk that are fans will hate it.
Craig, you need people nipping at the heels, don't you?
Yeah, well, what they're like, do you know the SNP, David? You'll maybe appreciate this a bit more. Up here, it's like a cult. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you're in the cult, you cannot have a single bad word said about you. And I've said to a few people and upset them who are pals of mine, are mad reform fans. I say, you're becoming a national version of the SNP, where you're not allowed to say anything critical about anything to do with the party. You think, well, aye, I will, if that's all right.
I don't know when all this started, this tribalism, but it's terrible. I don't think England's quite as bad anymore, this tribalism, because I think Boris broke down a lot of barriers when he won the 2019 general election.
Oh, yeah.
Taking a lot of Labour seats. For the first time ever, they voted Tory. People voted different ways. We're seeing more seats go Green and Lib Dem. There's a lot more change down here, but certainly in Scotland, the tribalism is...
Well, that was a referendum, mate, in 2014. That
that's true.
Here. And we've never fixed. Do you know something about reform that did get my attention when the results came out of the election? See the northeast of England, I worked up there for a while. And I would have thought that was an area that would never, ever be considered anything right or centre, right? But they just hate Tories, right? So you're very, very unlikely to get a Tory up there. You see the amount of people up there in that general election, the percentage that voted reform up in that top right-hand corner of England. I really thought, wow, you have got people up there that are right of centre. They just didn't like the Tories. And that'll be a generational thing. And I thought the results they pulled up there, that was some of the most sort of remarkable ones for me, that the Reform took chunks of the vote in a place that I thought would never be right of centre.
Yeah, well, the Teching Council...
I think that's Boris. I still think that was Boris. When Boris broke years, generations of voting Labour. And when people didn't vote Labour once, the spell was broken. They were able to not vote Labour. They might not vote Tory, but they'll vote Lib Dem or Green or whatever. They're not going to necessarily vote Labour ever again.
Yeah, it was a step too far to go Tory, but Reform gave them a sort of comfortable, cuddly option.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what happened there.
But look at Boris. Say what you like about the guy. I mean, he was a terrible Prime Minister, but he's one hell of a campaigner. To turn places like Burnley, Blythe Valley in the northeast, Hartlepool, all these places, turn all them Tory was one hell of a job. He's got that. Like Farage, he's got that Boris factor, and he's got that common touch. He can actually communicate with pretty much anybody, and people just seem to like them. I've never met Boris. I've met Farage, very likable person, very nice to have a drink with. I can see why people flock to him, and I can imagine Boris is exactly the same, and that's why people like them. They want it. When Boris campaigned to be London mayor, nobody gave him a shot because he's a Tory in London. And there was actually people coming out just for photos with him that voted Labour. They weren't even interested in the Tories, but they just wanted to meet Boris. He's more of a celebrity, if anything else. And I think that there's the Farage thing about that as well. It's the being well known is so important as well. And a lot of parties struggle with that. I bet more people know who Boris Johnson is and Nigel Farage is than know who, for example, Keir Starmer is.
Well, they have personal charm. Starmer doesn't. I mean, God help me for saying this. Even Tony Blair had charm. He was a terrible, terrible, evil man, but he had personal charm.
Yeah. I was thinking about him the other day. See, when they get into power, remember it was that cool Britannia type thing, and we had the Oasis and the Blur, and it was just a magic time to be British. We had a wee bit of gumption about us. We had a bit. I was thinking about it when I drove down to London on Friday. I like doing long distances myself because I get a lot of thoughts in my head. And I was thinking about that. So when was the last time we've kind of felt proud to be British? I think we had a wee bit of it with the Olympics in 2012, was that?
Yeah, 12, yeah.
And then that cool Britannia sort of phase. And I remember Tony Blair, early days after his election, running, and he had a party in the back garden, and it was all the sort of megastars of the UK, and it was like proud to be British. So the Labour Party can do it. You can have a Labour Party creating a happiness within the nation when not everybody was voting for them. But then now you're just like, where did it all go wrong?
They're despised, aren't they? That's the trouble. They're absolutely despised, even by Labour voters now. I have a friend. He's actually I don't know. But just say he's a member of the extended family. I'm going to go too deep in it. He is a staunch Labour man. Has been his whole life. He's a professional man. He's not a working class man. He's middle class, but he's been there all his life. That. And he's always trying to go, well, Labour do this, Labour this, Labour that, blah, 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 blah. For years. Labour get in. It took him 3 months, and he turned around. He said, David, I'm apologising to you. You were right all along. Labour are terrible. And this man has been supporting. He's nearly 70. He supported Labour his whole life, and I've been slagging him off for it. And he said, no, you're right. They are that bad. I had no idea how bad it would be. And you said it would be, and you were right. And he will never vote Labour again. And I bet he's not the only bloody one.
No, he won't.
Can I get a word in edgeways here, mate?
Sorry, pal.
Okay, there's things that you just expect a Labour government to do, and there's things that you expect a Labour government not to do. But when the things get crossed over, that's when you get a bit of carnage. And that's why I think when the heating allowance thing, it's one of the most un-Labour things you could do. Who would have thought? Keir Hardie must be turning in his grave thinking, what did I create here? A party that will take money off pensioners to heat their house in the winter. That's kind of not very Labour. And that was where I was like, what is going on in the world? There's just things that they don't do and things that they do, and they seem to be swapping them over. I mean, the things with farmers and the things with private education, they are kind of Labour things to do, right? So you can disagree with them, but you can kind of expect it. But to go and say, right, tell you what we're going to do, there's actually three things. One, we're going to cut the payments for the oldens in the winter. Two, we're going to try and take away benefits for the pit people, or some of them. And three, the most recent one, we'll make a nice wee cuddly lefty woke group a prescribed terror group, right? Like, I totally agree with that, by the way. But you just think that's no very Labour either, is it? So what are they? Does anybody know what Labour are anymore?
No, this is the problem. That every time something happens, they haven't got any plans. They never had any plans in the first place. So they're never proactive. They're always reacting to everything that's going on around them, and they get pulled from pillar to post, like running around trying to put little fires out here and there. And they haven't really got an agenda for government, have they? I don't know what policies they really stand for. The manifesto's gone up in smoke for what it was worth in the first place anyway. The only thing that was in their manifesto, I think, if I'm right in saying, was the VAT on private schools.
Well, didn't John Healey, the defence minister, just the other day, admit they were making it up as they went along because they didn't have policy in so many different areas?
Yeah, and he also, they can't pay for this defence spending or anything.
No.
I'm going to talk to your party and see if we can make this a policy, right? This was a mad idea I came up with in an X space one night when somebody said, "How do we make them accountable?"
Are you going to get me banned?
You what?
Are you going to get me banned off here or something? What are you going to say?
No. So what you could do is, and somebody more intelligent than me will need to come up with the numbers, right? So these are just an example. These are not in stone. But you say to every party, you must put up 10 policies that are non-negotiable, right? Non-negotiable policies. And out of the 10, see if you're a majority government, halfway through, so in 2.5 years, we're going to have a mid-term audit. And if you've not got half of those through, we call it a snap election. And if you get a coalition government, then you do the same, right? But what you do is the one with the bigger number, you say you must get 3 of your policies through in 2.5 years and the smaller partner 2 of them. So what you've got then is you've got folk that are accountable. Because what we do for 20 odd years is we go to put in a manifesto, whether you get a blue or a red rosette on, telling folk things like we're going to cut immigration. Get into power and don't cut immigration, you actually make it worse. So it was a conversation about all that. How can we make them accountable? Well, I think that'd be a great idea. So you get somebody more intelligent, maybe the number 6, I don't know. And halfway through the term, you must have got at least 3 of them through. And if you've not, then you're telling lies. So we call another election. And you either go and tell more lies to the public, or you just sort the job out. And I kind of think it would stop all this nonsense where they've done one thing that was on their manifesto, and that was the VAT on private education, and kind of forgot about the rest of it, right? They did have a manifesto. I'm kind of sure they did. But they kind of get the votes, win an election, throw that book in the nearest bin, and just go, right, what are we going to do now? Well, you need to be accountable. That's what you get voted in on. So you need to, after half the term, have half of those, whatever the number is, through government and passed, or we have another election. And I kind of think that would make it accountable.
There is an argument for having legally binding policies. I get that. But what if, for example, in Boris's, you get hit by an illness that spreads throughout the world, for example, how do you hold that? Then can you really hold them to account when something so bad happens and derails everything?
I think you can, because it's not like wartime governments, right, where kind of everything else stops, right? We just need to win this war. When we had COVID, we still had a functioning parliament. We didn't just meet to talk about COVID, although it was a lot of the time. But I don't know, what could you do in a circumstance like that? Maybe extend it from 2.5 years to 3.5 years? I don't know. But I think in principle, we need mechanisms in place to make these people that tell us lie after lie, year after year, election after election, to get in, be saying, here's a book, this is our manifesto, we're going to do that, see all these nice things here, get in, and just go, throw that in the bin, let's just do what we want. And I'm sick of it. And I think we need more mechanisms in place to make
Gone silent there, Craig.
I muted myself. I think also we need to have mechanisms in place to make MPs accountable. And I don't know, did you pick up the video I done yesterday about the change on the Westminster website to what an actual MP does?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, I saw that, yeah.
Right, and you think, hold on a minute. So it used to say, up until before yesterday, that an MP is elected by the people. That's no longer there. It used to say that they had to serve their constituents. That's not there. It used to say that they had to work in their constituency. That's not there anymore. And you go, they're actually making them less accountable. And I don't know the reasons behind the changes to that piece of paper, that page on the website, right? But you think, well, that was odd.
Yeah, well, yeah. Are they really accountable to us at all? But I'll tell you what, just to play devil's advocate, if you were going to hold me accountable legally for at least 5 of my policies, I'll tell you what I'd do. I'd pick 5 that were low-hanging fruit, complete bullshit policies that were so easy to get through, nobody even pay attention to them. And then the serious stuff I'd put in the last 5.
Well, that would be fine, because your manifesto, if that was the case, would have 10 things. And that's going to be the 10 things that you think the public are going to buy. So at least some of it shite's getting through. As opposed to what we've got now where we get none of it through. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Or make the number 6 and you've got to get 3 through. I don't know, because I'm not the most intelligent person even in this living room that I'm in myself. Do you know what I mean? But come up. But I think that's the sort of formula. The numbers need to be thought about and flung about to somebody else. You know.
Do you think we should have confirmation hearings?
What?
Do you think we should have confirmation hearings? So when
that's the things the Roman Catholic kids do when they're about 7.
No. So when Starmer says, right, I've just won the election, I want to make Rachel Reeves Chancellor, and she would have to sit in front of a committee who would then question her about her suitability, her experience, her knowledge, and they would have to approve whether they felt she was good enough to be the Chancellor. And it sounds like
an idea, but who's the panel? Who are the people making these decisions?
It would be it would have to be multi-party, panel, all the parties in Parliament, sitting there. So you'd have Tories, you'd have Lib Dems, and so forth. Maybe a dozen people, just representing Parliament to act as a buffer, so that you couldn't put a complete loon who lied on her CV up as Chancellor. You'd have someone who's actually got real world experience running a company, understanding numbers, understanding tax.
I kind of like the notion. What, mate?
Where that falls down, in my opinion, it depends on the makeup of Parliament, because we've already got lots of different committees for all sorts in there anyway, haven't you? And the Chancellor goes to some, the Prime Minister goes to some, and they sit there in front of, in this case now, their own MPs, because they're the majority party anyway, and they can feed them any old crap, and they don't really scrutinise them that much because they're Labour MPs anyway, aren't they? So who's going to make the final judgment call? You're not fit to be Chancellor.
Well, no, but it at least gets the questions out there, and it can embarrass them. Well, hang on, you said in your CV this, but that's not true, is it? Well, no, it's not true, and boom. At least it's out there. Even if they're approved for the role, the embarrassment is out there. The knowledge is out there. It doesn't come out as a surprise later on, and it would force, I think, some legitimacy.
I think the predictability would be, though, whoever made up these committees, you would imagine the government, if they've got 60% of the seats, they'd have 60% of the people in these committees. And then it just becomes a ridiculous bun fight, because people with the blue rosettes say you're terrible, and the people with the red rosettes say you're great, and the whole thing would just be spun out, and it would eventually be back to who they picked in the first place. So I kind of like the notion, but I kind of don't know how it would be in practice.
I think you're right, David, because what you're really talking about here is proper vetting of people. Are they actually fit to be in a job? And wouldn't you think that big organisations like the Tory party or the Labour party would actually be good enough to vet their candidates before they put them in? Instead of writing in saying, I was an economist, I was a solicitor, etc. I have never, in the case of that guy in Somerset, committed any of the crimes or been involved in anything like that. You think they'd look into these people's backgrounds, wouldn't you, etc. But they don't seem to, do they? All sorts of people manage to get inside Parliament. It's incredible.
Just had a thought. Literally just had this.
That's getting dangerous. You
It could
take
be
a breather,
dangerous.
old man, right? You just
Oh, yeah,
stay
yeah,
silent
yeah,
for 3 seconds and make sure you're not going
All
to get
right,
yourself in bother.
the nurse has been round with the tablets. I'm fine. Here's the thing: if you go to a doctor, he's qualified. He's experienced.
Yeah.
If you go to a solicitor, he's qualified. He's experienced. Whatever profession you need. Why do we need MPs to be ministers? Can't we outsource it? Can't we have a private company and hire a team of bankers, economists, accountants to run our economy?
That already, though, because that's kind of what's behind them all, and they all just read.
Oh no! What's behind them all are either policy wonks or the civil service. But the civil service have their own politicising between them as well. Why not say to a company, come in, run the economy, we'll give you this much a year. If the economy goes up by these percentage points, you get your bonuses. So that company then will have the desire to increase the economy, increase employment, generate more tax revenue for all the other areas of government it needs. And it's going to get rewarded for it. If it fucks up, it doesn't get any money at all. So it's not going to fuck up, is it? You know, you could actually professionalize this.
Well, you could argue that we kind of have that system, don't we? Like the Bank of England, for example, is supposed to be full of intelligent people that are, independent. The NHS is supposed to have the top medical professionals in the country working separate from politics.
But they're both arms of the establishment. I'm talking about a private company, for profit.
I'm all in favour of more privatisation, by the way. I always have been.
Yeah. Privatise a lot of it. Yeah.
If
nothing else, it reduces the pension bill.
Yeah, I probably would privatise a lot of things, including parts of the NHS, or at least have it so it wasn't a monopoly. Have like a French system or a German system, which works so well. If the French had a system like ours, they'd be writing every single day, having to wait months for a doctor's appointment, etc. Anyway, I think we'll wrap up shortly. We've done nearly an hour. So all I want to do is ask you 2 questions, and you've both got to answer.
Oh, God, it's not the one about where babies come from, is it?
Oh, right, I'll change the question. Who will be the first cabinet minister to go, and how long will Keir Starmer be prime minister for? David, do you want to go first?
Reverse order, Starmer won't last long. I can't see him lasting long now. There's too many people in the party who want him out. I think Rayner, as you say, she's got her tanks parked firmly on his lawn. I'll give him October conference. He's gone. I think there'll be a vote of confidence in the conference and he'll be gone. As for the first one out, I'd like to say Reeves, but I don't think now he can get rid of her just immediately. She won't last long probably, but I would say someone like Nandy. I think Nandy's going to go.
It's quite dim, isn't she?
A 1 watt candle,
Craig?
Starmer, I think he will last to the next conference. I think the conference does make sense, but that would be a prime time to do it. So I kind of think he'll be all right with this one. And I think the first to go, and here's one for you, because I'm thinking sort of Machiavellian and how these terrible people think and act, will be Rayner.
To force a vote of no confidence?
Well, if you kind of think you've got an enemy in the ship, you want to get rid of that person off the ship, don't you?
It's a big call, that. I don't think he'd have the balls to get rid of Rayner. I mean, it's your prediction. You can't be wrong. I mean, but
I think she'd have the balls to walk.
Possibly, yeah. If the time was right.
I don't think he could fire her. Well, he can't fire as deputy prime minister because it's an appointment he doesn't make.
No, but he could. Here's a strange thing, David. You don't need to fire somebody for them to not be on the cabinet anymore.
That's right. Yeah, he could drop her from cabinet without firing her from the position.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she has to be deputy leader of the party, doesn't she? But not necessarily in the cabinet or anything like that. But she's so dangerous to him. I'm not sure he's got the balls to do that. But she would definitely walk.
Mm-hmm. Well, if the rumours are true, then she's already trying to sniff about to oust him, then you would kind of need it. You're a sitting duck if you don't.
But if you take her out the
Reeves doesn't
cabinet,
pose
she's
any-
got free reign.
Well, he's not a sitting duck; he's a dead duck.
Mhm. But Reeves doesn't. No, but I'm not even talking about that, mate. I'm talking about. Imagine if there was a bad story about somebody, and they had to just get out of politics. Something like that, and you're gone.
Yeah.
You're removed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You can get bad stories about me and David. I'm sure you could find one about Rayner.
Oh, I'm sure you could.
I've got
Plenty.
Good lords.
I'll tell you who my first cabinet minister is. Because I think Nandi, people like Nandi, for example, half the country don't know who they are, and they're quite small. So to make up for all these cock-ups that have been happening for the last, 12 months now, you've got to get rid of somebody that's been quite visible and someone who's brought in some horrible policies. And I think it's Liz Kendall, because I think she's absolutely hopeless for a start. She's a mouthpiece. She's a human shield for Starmer, just like a lot of these people are. But a lot of people also know some of the policies she's brought in. They can hold her responsible for this PIP stuff. They can hold her responsible for taking away the winter fuel payment and really make her quite a scapegoat for a lot of the cock-ups that have happened. And she's very, very dislikable as well. All she does is stand there and shout and rant. I don't think she's got an original thought in her head, but she'll be the one, I think, that has to go. Just because she's a bit of a bigger name, and he can say, look, this is a reset now. And I that's my prediction. I think she goes.
Can I ask a question before you finish? Is it a prerequisite of being a YouTuber that you need to have some artwork behind your head?
Apparently so.
And our sofas are aligned as well.
We all look like
We all look like we're splitting the G.
That's great. That's weird, isn't it? And right now, Ash and my picture are sitting perfectly lined in the bottom part of them.
They are too, yeah.
Who came in separated at birth.
Yeah, all you got to do is turn Ash's head upside down and you look alike.
This mine's is artwork, local artwork, and if you can see over that, you can't make out the signature there, but the signature is Francis Houston, who is my uncle.
I have.
So is that your
Audrey
Auntie
Hepburn.
Audrey, I wonder what that was.
And he's got Uncle Jack.
Father Jack.
On that note, I'm going to bring this chat to an end, but I've really enjoyed it. Thanks, both, for coming on, and I'm sure we'll do it again soon.
No, it's been great being here. Thanks, Ash. Take care.
Cheers. See you in a bit.
Bye now.